So this session will be recorded and it will be also available on the NASAM website. So you may have seen this map before. We have in the NASAM 78 ICUs who are registered for the project from 48 hospitals in 27 cities, which is really a huge collaborative project for improvement. And we're very pleased for everybody helping and participating in this project. These hospitals are from multiple sectors. So we have National Guard hospitals, we have Ministry of Health hospitals, we have Military of Defense, military hospitals, and we have King Faisal hospitals, both in Jeddah and Riyadh, and several other hospitals. So it's really amazing collaborative work. You also have seen the website that includes educational material, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to do so. Look at the website, and we are looking for people contributing ideas and thoughts to enrich it, to improve the care of mechanically ventilated patients. And we're gonna be discussing some of additional thoughts today about how to make this better. So 2 days ago, we have high-level administrative meeting regarding the NASAM project hosted by His Excellency, Dr. Bandar Ganawi, and was attended by representatives from essentially all sectors of that are involved in NASAM. We do have Dr. Abdullah Housawi, who's the Director of Saudi Patient Safety Center. We have Dr. Khalid Maghribi, the Chairman of ICU at King Faisal. Dr. Adnan Maghribi, Chairman of ICU Military Hospital. Dr. Sahil Ghamdi from Quality Department in the Ministry of Health. And Dr. Yasser Mandura from the Medical Services in the military hospital, military services. Armed forces, sorry. Armed forces. So high-level discussion, we discussed the current status of this project, and we had a lot of good thoughts about how to move it forward. And we'd like to share some of it with you and maybe get some additional ideas. So far, many of you have contributed data regarding especially compliance with the key parts of the NASAM. And I think different ICUs contributed data. We have, when I made this slide, there were 15,000. There are 16,000 patient days today, but the numbers are almost the same. I think the slide really is the center of what we'll be discussing today. So the compliance with the subglottic suctioning, subglottic endotracheal tube across all these ICUs that are participating is only 32%. We would like to be much higher, so only 32%. Spontaneous awakening trial, meaning sedation interruption on patients who are on sedation infusions, 48%. And that's also something can be improved. Percentage of ventilated patients without sedation, 42%. So it means that 60% of patients ventilated are sedated. And this is something we'll need to discuss. Spontaneous breathing trial, compliance rate. So patients who are candidate to have SBT, only 54% have documented SBT done. Other almost 50% did not have it on these days. Percentage of actual RAS, -1 to +1, meaning patients are not heavily sedated. They are weak, essentially. So only 30%, so 70% of patients who are ventilated are actually heavily sedated. This is what this information, this data telling me. So that's a lot of sedation. Percentage of achieved RAS is 27%, and this is all consistent with the literature. That we like, very often we like the patient to be awake, but you come and he's still sedated. So it's only 27% of patients you achieve the RAS goal that 27% the RAS goal that was planned was actually achieved. Patients are typically more sedated. The last two lines should be just rephrased a little bit. The mobility with weight-bearing activity, so standing and more, is 0.5%, so 0.5% of patients in the ICU are ventilated, have a mobility of standing or more, standing or marching or walking. In the patients who are not intubated in the ICU, so let's say take somebody who's post-op in the ICU, day 2, is not intubated, chance of him standing or doing some exercise, walking, is only 5%. So what this data tells me that the theme that we have is relatively old theme of ICU care. It's basically patients in the ICU are generally sedated and laying in bed. I mean, that's what this data says. And the trends now, as you know, I mean, this is the theme was the same years ago, decades ago, when ICU invented that everybody in the ICU should be bed rested and should be sedated. But now we believe this is not the right thing. And I shared with you an article a few days ago, data showing that heavy sedation increases risk of death. Heavily sedating patients not good for them. And this data, we need to use this to move this forward. We like to see patients sedated only if they really need to be sedated. Otherwise, they should be awake because the normal person is awake. Okay, let them awake and should be mobilized. Otherwise, they will be severely deconditioned. The other aspect of this project so far is the contribution of data from sites. And this slide shows the data from different ICUs, and each row is basically an ICU. And in green is the ICUs that contributed some data into the NASAM. So green is good. So look, this ICU, and each column is a week. This week was not complete when I pulled the data, so a lot of it you could ignore this one. But otherwise, this ICU is good, green. But many ICUs you could see a lot of red. So not all the ICUs have put their data in for NASAM, but also for the other parts of the project. And without data, we will not be able to. You will not be able to use this to improve the care of your patients and our patients. And what we would like to see is more ICUs contributing, putting their data in the system, so they can generate their own reports and make some use of it. Otherwise, it will not guide the project. So that's a very brief summary of the project. And what I'm going to share with you next now is some thoughts about action plan. Okay, so here we put some thoughts about where we should be going on this. And I just looked at the key issues that will help patients who are mechanically ventilated, key indicators. And if you look at the database, there are many, many other indicators, but I'm looking at the key ones here. So first one is the endotracheal tube and tracheostomy tube with subglottic suctioning. As I said, the average current rate is 32%. And what we thought, and we discussed this with the leadership, that in 6 months, we like to get this up to 80%. Okay, so each unit really should target 80% of patients have subglottic tubes or tracheostomy tubes, subglottic suctioning. I know this, some units have 0% because they don't have it yet, but discussing with Dr. Zuhair Al-Asiri and MOH, and I'm gonna be meeting with MOH leadership next week. There's a lot of work being done on making this available. So I think this will be hopefully resolved. But in the units that exist already, we would like this to be used on all patients who are ventilated for sufficient time, for 2 days or more. very short-term, immediate post-op, probably don't need it. But on all codes, all patient intubated in the ICU, all patient intubated in ER, you need to do it, otherwise you'll not get 80%. So please, I think we need your help and thoughts on how to make this better. So the challenge is, why is it not high, is probably lack of availability in certain ICUs, and I mentioned that we're working on this. And also the other part is the lack of familiarity, maybe. So it's not good enough to have the tubes if you don't use them properly. And I discussed with many of our respiratory therapy colleagues is that we would like to create a training module on how to use it. It's really very simple. But can we create a training module on how to use it? Training material, and we'll give a webinar on the use of subglottic suctioning in the tracheal tube and tracheostomy. I think they are very useful and is supported by evidence-based medicine. Now, one of the thoughts today is we're going to try to make several educational videos, one of them on subglottic suctioning, but on others. I'll talk a little later on how we'd like to do this. Second is related to sedation. Spontaneous awakening trial compliance rate is 48%, and I think we should target 80%. So patients who are sedated and don't have contraindication to stop sedation, we like our nurses and great nurses to stop sedation. To make, and we need to make a protocol. Each unit have a protocol and agreed within internally on how to do it. But the idea is interruption of sedation in patients who are eligible to do this. The problems with sedation are really deep and rooted in culture. Is related to the overuse of sedative infusion. Is based on the misconception that everybody who's intubated should be on sedation infusion. It's a big myth. It's wrong. It's no. The answer is no. Not all patients who are intubated need to be on sedation infusion. And I don't know if you remember, there was even a trial of no sedation protocol. No sedation. So there are some patients who will not need any sedation. And if they need, I think should do graduated approach. Maybe no sedation, maybe if need, you give PRN analgesics, PRN sedatives. If you need sedatives, use short-acting drugs, not midazolam. Avoid benzodiazepine in general, use propofol, use dexmedetomidine. And midaz will be your last option because it accumulates a lot. The other big issue is de-escalation of sedation. The other big problem is sometimes the patient is agitated when you first intubate him, happens, so he needs sedation. So he started on a certain level and he remains on this for a long time, for days. Now, this is problematic because it very often accumulates a lot, and when you decide to stop sedation, he doesn't wake up. Or when you decide to stop it and then it becomes so delirious from withdrawal because it's too much. Also, the overuse of neuromuscular blockers, I think, should be avoided. It's another problem. So what we hope to do on this is, is multidisciplinary educational course. We like to give a webinar and we'll make it also available, but maybe we need to create educational material that we can put on the website about choice of sedation, about sedation interruption, implementing measurement tools. All units, I mean, this is the standard of care now, is that for sedation, you should measure sedation level using GRAS. So don't use GCS to measure sedation. GCS is not for sedation. GCS is for level of consciousness. Make dexmedetomidine available in all units, and I know Dr. Zuhair has been working on this for MOH hospitals. And there are some sedation protocol, and there are some a little longer term options for many hospitals that don't have adequate nursing ratios to work on that, but that's a little longer term, and having clinical pharmacists. Next issue is related to VE surveillance. We have very low rate of putting that on VE. Only 12% of ICUs put their VE data, which is low. It's very, very low. It's going to be a big problem. We like to reach 60 to 80% in the next few months. Part of this is people maybe having difficulty in understanding VE, although we gave a lot of discussion about it. We have online material. People are still using the old definition of VE, and there is also discussion on adopting VE in all ICUs. We'll have more webinars. We probably need to create a core group of people who are head nurses and respiratory therapy training on VE to be our resources in all units. Spontaneous breathing trial is another big target for improvement, because 54% of patients who should have weaning trial on a daily basis, only 50% are getting weaning trial. And the target should be 80%. And I'm giving you average of all these hospitals, so there's variability, right? So some will be higher, some will be lower, but that's the average of everybody. But for us, all of us, we should try to bring it up to reach 80%. So why is it not happening? I think there are several reasons. One is maybe lack of awareness how important it is to do spontaneous breathing trial every day. One day for patient actually impact his morbidity and maybe impact his mortality. Keeping one patient unnecessarily on the ventilator is not a good thing. So try to get him off sooner, not later. Another issue I think very important is related to coordination between sedation and weaning. And if we don't coordinate these two functions, it will fail. So if you can, there's no point of trying to putting somebody on
online. طلعت الكاميرا كم 36 مشترك عن داخلي هذا راح يدقونه في صوت كذا تلاقوا
so coordinated care between between generation and weaning and early in the morning, because you come, as I said, you come to wean and they're sedated. Then if the sedation takes right, but then the day is over and you have another cycle and you wait till the next day. So we want to avoid this. So how to improve it? These are some thoughts that are not written in stone. So we welcome more ideas. Physician training on spontaneous breathing trial. Physician and RTs, if RT is available in that unit. Building capacity on having respiratory therapy. So in ICUs where there is no respiratory therapy, would like for us that respiratory therapy should be mandatory. And having more webinars and training material on SBT, on spontaneous breathing trial. Early mobility is another big issue, and it's a really change of culture. As I said, 0.5% of patients were mobilized to standing or more, and 5% of non-ventilated patients were standing or more or higher, which is still low, this is very low. So somebody, as I said, post-op, not ventilated, why only 5% are standing? Why not? Why? If this patient was on the ward, he probably would be walking. Same patient. I tell you, patient goes to the ward and he starts to walk, because it's a culture in the ICU that patients should be in bed, and we should change it. So maybe 40% of non-ventilated patients should be standing and above or more, yeah, and 10% of ventilated patients, maybe that's should be our target. I think part of this is lack of awareness, lack of maybe low number of physiotherapists, and I also very important because it's multidisciplinary. So nurse, physio, respiratory, all of us have to work on doing this. It's not one group will be doing this mobility. How to get mobility better, including physiotherapy assessment for all ICU patients from day 1. So no point of getting physiotherapy involved on day 10. This is too late. We want assessment from day 1, involvement from day 1, and plans to be done from day 1. Training on early mobility, and maybe increase physiotherapy staff in different participating ICUs. Coordinated care is critical. The doctor, we should have a clear plan that this patient is for weaning tomorrow. I mean, it makes a big difference when this plan is articulated versus it's vague. So multidisciplinary plan between the doctors, nurses, and RTs. And I think it's limited in many places. How to improve it? Our ICU and many places around the world have implemented daily goals and checklists. So on rounds every day, you have plans that this patient, we plan to wean him tomorrow, subsedation at 6 a.m., try spontaneous breathing, put him on spontaneous breathing try at 7 a.m. So when the doctors come, the patient, this has been attempted. This makes a huge difference. And I think we'll have some training on this one. Multidisciplinary coordinated care between SAT and SBT is the ABCD bundle. ABCD bundle C is coordinated care between sedation and weaning is coordination. So coordination is a critical part of all this. Next item is related to data management. So in brief, for the NASAM bundles, 57% of the months have data from different ICUs, and I showed you the green and the red one. But early mobility is less, 45%, for VE 17%, and for outcome measures only 12%. And without this information, you as unit will not be able to see if you are making a difference or not. And we're going to do all this effort. We like to see that this reflects on patient outcomes. If you don't have the data, it will not happen. And we would like to get this 100%. Maybe part of it is limited engagement, people live busy, late start, and I hope that we can come over this one. We will be soon starting sending monthly scorecards for each ICU about their statistics and about their data completion. So to try give feedback about what everyone is doing. Training, the webinars, thankful to everybody attending. We have 34 people, 36 people attending today, which is good. We have 78 ICUs, so we have half of them today attending, which is much better than previous webinars. Now, I tell you my observation so far in the last 4 months, the ICUs that are participating and attending this, they are already making big progress. I have seen this clearly. So engagement is very important. And the webinar, we try to make it in midweek in time that's relatively slower, hopefully, for most ICUs. Obviously, I think everybody should try to make time for it. It's only 1 hour. And in case you know the status of this project. So attendance is important. Otherwise, you will not know the status of this quality improvement project, and I think will not move forward. So we are thinking about ways of improving communication by creating a newsletter, by maybe we'll try to keep attendance, we'll see how this can do it, and improving communication so that you can see more communication. Soon we're going to be sending you the patient and safety culture survey. We talked about this last time. I think this project works only if you have CUSP team in your unit. So if you have this is a unit-based project. So each unit has to drive the change in their unit. This is only it works. So each unit will drive the change. It's the doctor, the nurse, and the RT in that unit, supervisor, who are going to make the change. It's not us telling you what to do. We're giving you just indicators which direction. So it cannot be done by a nurse alone or by a physician alone or by RT alone. It has to be multidisciplinary team who meet regularly using the CUSP principles. So I tell you the leadership of MOH, National Guard, military, everybody is very, very supportive of this concept. and would like this to happen because this is the way to go. They will be going to be doing some database enhancement about making down the report down, ability to download the reports, and to ability to have more regular quality reports. One of idea which I didn't put it here, as we discussed today, is we're going to make educational videos about the 4 domains in this project. There are 4 things in this project. One is subglottic suctioning. One is proper sedation. The third is the proper spontaneous breathing trial, and 4th is mobility. So we're gonna ask people if they're gonna make a competition instead of us making this all these videos. I think it would be very useful if we're gonna announce competition. So we ask people to make videos, 2-3 minutes, only brief videos. So about spontaneous, for example, let's take subglottic suctioning. On what's the value of this, how to use it, what's the protocol. And we'll put some guidelines. We don't want patient identification, no patient face, for example. The reward you're going to put on the website. Of course, yes. So we're going to select the best ones. Yes. We're going to select the best ones. So for sedation, we want one for sedation, discussing the best sedation practices in the ICU based on evidence-based. And we like it to be multidisciplinary. So I think the subglottic probably going to be RT predominantly. The sedation can be a doctor and nurse, but we'll leave it to each team to make up whatever they want to do. And the spontaneous breathing trial could be a doctor and a respiratory therapist. But brief has to be a brief. Try to make them good quality. And the last one about mobility. Mobility should be done by physio and nursing together. I think we need to emphasize the multidisciplinary nature of this, right? And I already received some fantastic videos about air mobility from some hospitals, but I cannot use them. So, so I will leave it to people to send their education videos that will we can put them as educational resources. So think about it as you are educating others. So in these videos, no patient identification. I think general rules, no patient face. And if you put patient videos, take consent. But I prefer try to limit that. So maybe use volunteers. Yeah, if you have, but I mean, everybody can do the same. And use it generic. So education in general. So try to give a message to everybody. Reflect on everybody practice, not only your unit. So I don't need to say, in my ICU, this is what I do. We want to say in general what to be done. So this is kind of summary of what we thought, and we can open it for discussion. We can unmute the microphones for people who want to share, or we can send chat. And 9 chats already. So question about ventilated, the ratio of RTs to patients. What's the right ratio? This question. That's only one. One to 6 is reasonable. Well, this has to be, this we wrote it here, but need to be discussed. But generally in our ICUs, we have 1 to 6 for ventilated patients. Other thoughts from audience here? Salha, come here. Yes. So people can hear you. Any other thoughts? Other questions?
I have ideas for the subglottic suction catheters. I mean, subglottic ET tube or trach. Since we have the tracheostomy, I think we don't have any issues with it because we do it most of the time either bedside or in the OR, so we don't have any issues with it. But in the ER, if the patients come from ER, like trauma patients, sometimes they have an issues with the subglottic. Can we just make sure that in the ER people, they have the subaglottic ET tubes, because this is our main problem. Like, we are trauma units, we have the problem with this.
Yeah, and the trauma patients are the highest risk for bad, by the way. Yeah, so we need to make these available in ER for sure. Because the patient in ER is not going to be extubated next day. Very unlikely, right? Most of them stay for a while. And trauma patients are high risk for pneumonia.
Yeah.
So I thought we have them. So if we don't, who's our supervisor? Who can help us? Yeah, and the code blue. Yeah, I think the code blue and CCRT, for example, should have these tubes. For OR, I think we should make them available, but for patients who are likely to come to ICU. But the immediate post-op intubate, extubate, I don't think it will be waste to use them. Good idea. So who can help on this one in our ICU? Yeah. Okay, other
things continuous, we can try it.
Yeah.
If we have, unfortunately, we don't have a team, a physician team here, but I think we need to just make sure that the plan is documented for the nurses to follow. That there is a trial tomorrow, we will try for extubations. At least it will be clear. Now, the documentations on the best care, we have an issues with it also.
Yeah. So plan of care coordination care ahead of time, the day before, about weaning, mandatory. Agree fully. Any other suggestions? Training videos, any thoughts about the training videos? Okay, so how can you share? You can share it through the. So Dr. Kerr, she has an article about subaglottic suctioning. We can share it through the WebEx. You can share it. Abdullah can share this article with everybody. Any other thoughts? Sedation, nursing, any thoughts about sedation? So question here, we don't have subaglottic suctioning tube, and one thing more from here, any patient intubated without needs solution. Yeah, so for hospitals who don't have it, they are working on making this available. But once you make them available, I think as we are happening in our hospital, we need to use them. So ICU, intubation in ICU is only is a fraction of patients. But many patients come to ICU intubated in the emergency room. So we need to make them available in the emergency room and discuss with the ER physician to use them. All tracheostomy tubes have no subglottic suctioning, the same. So the ones surgically placed, most of them don't, even in our hospital. The surgical tracheostomies do not. The percutaneous tracheostomy is on, some of them come with subglottic suctioning, and we found them very useful. So in our unit, we use this, so we will propose this. So it's part of the action plan is to propose these to become available. Good question. Mobility, how can we move on mobility? How can we make mobility better? Come here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Regarding the mobility, I think we discussed with people who is working with the quality and finding some recalculation for our percentages.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how to mobilize patients.
Yeah, regarding the mobilizing patients, it's dependent on the patient's illness or sedation, which is stopping any active movement to be done. So any enhancement for going for without the sedation or after the sedation, while the patient become more cooperative with the therapist with stability level, I think is be able to go in one of the level of mobility. Some perceived barriers might stop for further mobility level to go higher, which is expected in ICU, but I think to be cooperative with the therapist, and the therapist as well need to educate themselves and improve their level of professional work on the early mobility, especially in the ICU patient. I think it is important.
Any perspective from nursing on mobility?
Until you come, I will add one thing. Also, I would like to thank the nurses who are helping in the mobility also. But one thing is very important, to engage nurse with the physical therapist to go on one plan. This is very important to have the same level of mobility during the night shift to continue what's happened in the morning when the patient is still in the same status. This is very important.
We have some challenges, I think, in all the ICUs in our hospital here. We're working with our physiotherapists. We have very few physiotherapists. They come only once a day, and sometimes the nurses are already mobilized the patients earlier. So the nurses have taken part in mobilizing the patients earlier. They don't wait for the physiotherapist, because there's only one physiotherapist. Sometimes they run for 3 units. So that's a challenge, working with the physiotherapist. So the nurses have taken the initiative to mobilize the patients ourselves.
Yeah. So I think this, say again.
We need more support.
Yeah.
If we have patients to be mobilized in, for example, 1 unit, and the other one patient for the other unit.
Yeah, so we need to come up with a protocol, and that's part of the discussion that's been going on for a long time now, is that certain levels of mobility can be done by nurses, which you are doing already, and certain levels will need the physiotherapist. If we're expecting that each mobility will require a physiotherapist, will be completely impractical, in my opinion. So I think we have a protocol already to do that. I think maybe let's pilot it. We did pilot it? I think we should pilot this and see if it's feasible, and then we can discuss it with the group, because just keeping everybody, just waiting for the physiotherapist for hours and hours also is not a solution. So I really appreciate the initiative to get patients mobilized.
I think also I have to add something here, that when the patient is mobilized by the nurse at morning time, while the therapist is around available, I think this makes the patient a little bit tired to continue and do higher level. So I prefer in the morning time to have the chance for the physical therapy to do the assessment, to go for higher level of the assessment, or to discuss as a round morning with the therapist to go with some plan. And for the night time, it's just to continue of the care for the patient, for all the patients. And also for regarding the protocolization in each unit in all hospitals, I think is making everything is smooth and easier for everyone to know what he or she need to do specifically.
Very good. So Dr. Hassan Al-Ashi put a comment that we have policy for sedation, vacation, asir, and good mobility achievement. So you are unmuted now, so you can talk, Dr. Hassan. Can you tell us about this?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Hello?
Yes, we hear you, but come closer to the microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, is it okay like this?
No, not really. Come closer and speak loud.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Yasin, to give me a chance to
No,
speak.
I can't hear
Regarding
you.
the sedation vacation, yeah, you cannot hear?
Now I hear it. It's okay now.
Yeah. Regarding the sedation vacation, we have the policy that the physician responsible for the patient at the night duty, during his regular round, he should, if the patient is contraindicated for sedation vacation, he should write it clearly in the file, that the nurse will know that no sedation vacation, and she will endorse to the other nurse. Otherwise, the nurse has the privilege to stop the sedation in the morning if there is no written order by the physician. And also we educate the nurse about the contraindication of the sedation vacation. So this double check. If she has any doubt that maybe the physician forget or something or missed to write the order, she has to confirm. If she has any doubt, she has to confirm again with the physician that I think that this patient is contraindication for the sedation vacation. Shall I stop the sedation? So there will be feedback. Otherwise, the staff, all the staff nurse has the privilege to stop the sedation, switch off the sedation at 7 a.m. This is, and we are following this daily and also coordinate with the respiratory therapist. After the, like 7:30, we will go around with the respiratory therapist. Every patient who like off sedation and he has no problem with the sedation vacation, he should be receive a spontaneous breathing trial, CPAP trial. So this is our policy.
What you are saying is that the nurses, you have a protocol which states which patient are candidates for sedation interruption, and
yes.
If the patient meets this, the nurses automatically stop sedation without physician order. Yes?
Yes, that's right.
If there's a contraindication, she refer to the doctor.
Yeah, and if there is contraindication, should be a written order in the file. We are not accepting like just a verbal order that don't stop sedation. The doctor should write on the file that no sedation vacation because, and he should write the cause, that when the person who's collecting the data, he will write, when we are writing that there is no sedation vacation in the data collection, easily he will check the file and he will know why there was contraindication.
Right. Now, I mean, these protocols, SAT, SPT, are meant exactly to be like this. It is meant to be spontaneous awakening trial, meant to be nurse-initiated,
yes,
nurse-led, and the spontaneous breathing trial meant to be respiratory therapy-led. If
yes.
you wait for me, I tell you on the rounds, I see all the patients. But sometimes I reach the patient at 1 o'clock. So if you're going to wait for me to tell you stop sedation, it might be too late.
Yes.
I think it doesn't help the patients, really. So the nurses are empowered to stop sedation early in the morning. So at least the patient has time to clear sedatives and has a chance to be tested for spontaneous breathing trial. This should be the practice. So I don't think we need an order from physician for every weaning and every sedation interruption. The patients straightforward, which are majority patients.
Yes.
How about the mobility centers?
For the mobility, actually, we make a lot of changes, and we change the policy of referring the patient to the physiotherapy. We have our own physiotherapy team in the ICU. We make a lot of educational materials and staff awareness about the early mobilization. We start also to survey the staff awareness of the ICU, how in the beginning that we know to measure the knowledge of the ICU staff about and the awareness about the mobilization in the ICU. So we found that we need a lot of educational materials. We make this educational materials. We organize a card. Every physician should have this card. In the morning round, the consultant or the physician who make the round, he should write clearly that this patient should be mobilized, like at level 0, at level 1, at level 2. Then there is assessment from the, actually it is not physiotherapy, it is NASAM team the physiotherapy leading the mobilization of the NASAM. They will assess the patient and they will try to mobilize the patient. Mobilization, it's really a multidisciplinary. The physician should attend, the physiotherapist, the respiratory therapist, and the nurse. And I think I share with you some videos. Today we move one patient on tube, ETT, walking. He walk alone, this patient. Today, we achieve, alhamdulillah. Yeah, he walk alone.
Excellent. So this is a great job. You showed me some of the videos. If you want to show us a video now, so we can put them, give you the screen. But I think you are doing a remarkable job on this our early mobility program. You sent me a couple of videos on intubated and tracheostomized patients with the whole team helping him, supporting him. So I think it's a very great example of progressing very well with the early mobility. And I think that's going to be on patients.
Okay. To be honest, also, just I will let our leader in the physiotherapy or the early mobilization process, Miss Sarah Al-Malki, just she will talk for 1 or 2 minutes if you don't mind, Dr. Yasin.
No, that's great. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please, Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to hear you today. We really achieved very high level of mobility, and as Dr. Hassan mentioned before, we as a teamwork, a multidisciplinary team. Me as a physical therapist, I reassess all my patients every day and rule out all patients that just need passive range of motion, and focus and concentrate on the patients that will achieve a higher level in mobility. So alhamdulillah, in this month we achieve a higher level. I think we have 2 patients walking with the tube, intubated patient, and 2 patients transfer on wheelchair. We have some barriers in achieved before, because before I was worked alone as a physical therapist, but now alhamdulillah we have our team. Dr. Hassan Al-Ashri, he is our leader, and also we work with RT, the nurses, all of us. We enhance and join in this in early mobilization for each patient. So that's it. That's what I want to. Also, we have a family engagement. We started that. We have 2 patients. We engage the family to helping us to mobilize the patient.
You're doing a great job. I think this is fantastic. It's amazing.
Alhamdulillah.
You've been doing.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. If you have a video you want to show us, Dr. Hassan, you can share it.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
So there's a question. Thank you, Sarah. Fantastic. So there's a question about if patient more than 90 days is considered empty bed. So yeah, for the objective of the NASAM, just consider it as empty. So at 90 days we'll stop. Any other thoughts?
السلام عليكم دكتور ياسين.
دكتور احمد، وعليكم السلام ورحمه الله.
علينا، كيف حالك؟ الله يبارك فيك. الله يبارك. أنا في I have one question يعني about the we did notice low compliance with the question asking about if you have a patient on mechanical ventilation with nil sedatives, no sedation, no drugs.
Yeah.
Because I think rarely we can keeping the patient with ventilator without even low dose of fentanyl, for example. What is the target behind that, or what the expectation? And you will find compliance with this. I think it will be not so much any high compliance. What's your experience and the others about this?
Yeah, good point. So the parameter that says days on the ventilator without sedation, right? That's what you are asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're saying it's low because it's difficult to keep patients without sedation. Well, I don't know what's the magic number here, but the best is to compare it with the benchmark. This is the idea of benchmark. When we don't know what's the right number, you look at what other people are doing and compare it. So I think, so what's the value here? Our value is the value in the whole group, which I don't know the range. I have to look at the range.
I think around the 10%, as I remember.
Yeah, so 10% for the average, 42%. Average in national average is 42%. So that's the average. So each unit should look at what's their value, and you have something to compare with. Obviously, units are not the same, and you have to also, some of the variability, it's not all the patients are the same. So you could have a predominantly neuro ICU, predominantly surgical, they differ. But nevertheless, I think you have some comparison that guide. So if my unit is 1% and the average is 42%, then certainly there's an issue, right? That I need to work on.
Oh, okay. So the others are 41%.
But you have on the graphs, all the graphs have the unit and also the national average. Also the national average is there as well.
I'm asking this national average, which is the benchmark of 41%. Actually, it is I think it is the target to reach to 40% without sedation at all.
That's not the target. This is existing.
It's existing, so yeah.
Existing value.
So do you recommend to be close to that?
I would recommend to I would recommend focusing on the spontaneous awakening compliance rate.
Yes, okay.
Because it's variable, the percentage without sedation. There are two competing things that will change it. One, if you reduce sedation, it will improve, but then you will extubate patients faster, it will come down. So it may not change much. I would focus on the spontaneous awakening trial. So in the NASAM database, there are many indicators, and I think we can probably select a few of them to guide the project. SAT compliance rate probably is more solid one. It's more important.
Yes, I'm agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? No. So with that, I think we'll finish. So what we plan to do, we'll send you in 2 days maybe some instruction about how to do these videos. And we'll have to ask different units to prepare short video. It's a voluntary, whoever it was. But then you could see there are actually many people interested in doing some educational material. Very brief video. So we can put it on the website. And again, general information. But the goal is to move, the goal of this presentation is not, the video is not too generic. It has to focus on how to improve these processes, how to make these better. So we'll send you this in 2 days. We plan to, in Ramadan, inshallah, we'll have one webinar only, but we'll make it maybe brave just to keep follow up on the status of the project. And after Eid, inshallah, we'll resume. But we'll have one in Ramadan. Also, Abdullah, you want to talk about the cost of survey? Come here.
Assalamu alaikum. So we'll talk about two things. The first is the safety culture survey, and we are planning to launch it hopefully by the end of this week. We are targeting 50% of the units submitted their emails, and once we get it, the staff or the emails that were sent to us will receive a link where they can fill the survey. The second thing, which is the CUSP concept. So we will send a survey asking for the contact details for each unit to fill the team members' information. This will help us to share the data that we get, what I meant is the reports, to share it within the team and also to share future information and data.
Fantastic. So thank you all for coming to today's meeting. We're going to put this, you have a question? One last question. Come in. Come here. Microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mshari Nizi. I'm from Cash. I have a doubt, Dr. Just to add something regarding the patient for weaning for everyone. I believe to add a psychiatric therapist regarding weaning or something like this, because patient regard even sickness of ICU, they are worried. Even they are believe they are getting inside an ICU, they will gonna die, or they believe that from ICU they will not come back to the life. So I believe that if we involve a psychiatric therapist or just to have a consult to come to see the patient, how's the patient, live, thinking, getting better. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, some patients will, this brings the issue of delirium. Some patients will have delirium and certainly post-traumatic stress disorder from being in the ICU. But the majority of our patients, if you do this early, I think will be managed by the multidisciplinary team. But I agree with you, selected patients will need additional support. But to do it routinely, probably we'll do it in selected patients. So I agree. I think this emphasizes the issue of delirium, psychological issues after ICU. But interestingly, many of them are related to sedation. Many of them. So sedation, too much sedation is associated with more delirium. Benzodiazepine has been associated with delirium. So, and I think that's part of the project. Mobility has been associated with reducing delirium. So getting person back to his normal is a good thing, even psychologically. Chronic patients, I think chronic patients definitely, some of them will need psychologist support for sure. Okay, I think time is up, so we'll stop here, and thank you very much for being here. How to stop recording? Yes. Stop that.